A Canadian company has signed a huge multi-million-dollar deal with the US government, and it's for ice. Could this be the end of the trade war with Canada and the United States? Most likely not. We are already seeing Canadians push back, trying to get this deal canceled, complaining to the Canadian government that they need to stop this deal from happening with the US. But there is a way for Canada and the US to work together around this topic, and that is the shared problem of the H-1B and the temporary foreign workers. We are seeing that problem heat up. More information has come out, and it's an even bigger issue than originally thought, and they're finally admitting it themselves. Speaking of admitting it themselves, industries are continuing the trend of saying, stop blaming the United States. Our industry problems are because of the government of Canada, and it's good to see because we just had more major layoffs in the pulp and paper industry. Seems like there could be thousands of jobs on the line. And speaking of the government being a problem, they're now sending hundreds of millions of more dollars to the Ukraine during their massive corruption scandal. There is a lot to talk about in today's video, so let's get into it.
We're here in front of a very large manufacturing plant which belongs to the company Rochelle, which is a defense manufacturer headquartered here in Brampton. U.S. government records show that ICE, also known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has procured 20 armored vehicles to be delivered within 30 days from this company. Now, Rochelle has a history of supplying both Canadian and U.S. governments with tactical vehicles. However, this order comes in the middle of a trade war between the two countries, and despite U.S. President Donald Trump touting an American first agenda and slapping tariffs on several Canadian industries, his government is spending more than $7 million US to buy these emergency response tactical vehicles.
Rochelle, a girl's erotic journey from Milan to Minsk. I don't know if you guys are going to get that reference, but I keep thinking of that joke every time I listen to anything about this story. However, one little funny detail that I want to offer is this is from a city called Brampton. Brampton is known as probably the #1 city in Canada for foreign entrepreneurs from Operation Curry Bomb. So the irony that these military vehicles could be built by immigrants to take on immigrants.
Vehicles. In the documents, officials defend the purchase, saying a handful of American companies were asked but couldn't meet the timeline, and say delaying it would hinder ICE's ability to deploy mission-critical resources in a timely manner.
There we go. There's a good old boy.
Now, these vehicles, which are built to withstand bullets, will be sent to help ICE, which is currently mired in controversy, facing allegations of its own of human rights abuses as they carry out Donald Trump's widespread immigration crackdown. Now, we have reached out to Rochelle and are also reaching out to Canadian government officials for comment on this insight, and we'll have more details when we receive a response later on CTV News.
One of my favorite parts is every single video I've watched where they mention ICE at all, they always follow it with the same talking point. The ICE, which is currently mired in controversy because of all these, and just, it's currently facing a controversial pushback. Every single time they mention ICE, they have to follow it with, no, we're not supporting them. They're a controversial agency, and we just want to make sure that you guys know. Speaking of, we had this article here, and it says, Anand can't say whether Canada will block export of armored vehicles for ICE use. So they are already receiving tons of pushback, blowback from this, which I expected. The minute I saw the article going around, I knew Canadians are going to be freaking out, which is pretty funny. But her statement here, the government is not involved in the transaction. We have not received any questions or permit requests regarding this transaction. The minister said, I will continue to reiterate that Canada and the United States have a strong bilateral relationship with an open line of communication in which, if necessary, I will raise the issues with Secretary Rubio. So it sounds like for now, the government is not going to be involved in this transaction, as they should not be involved with this transaction. I don't know how the Canadian government could come in and kibosh this at all, but they definitely should not, because if they were to shut this down, I would assume it would be an international incident that Trump would probably have a lot to say about them coming in and denying those vehicles, and something tells me it would not be good for Canadians. But the funnier part from this article is they talked to the CEO or the owner, Roman Shimonov, president of Rochelle, a girl's erotic journey from Milan to Minsk, declined to comment directly on the contract, and he said, "We don't sell to ICE, we sell to the US government." This guy makes military technology, this guy makes military vehicles, and he for some reason is too scared to supply directly to ICE because he has the moral high ground. "We would never supply to ICE, we just supply military equipment so people could drive around and shoot each other, but not ICE. That would be against our rules as a company." Speaking of ICE, this hilarious video came out on the Canadian mainstream media, and there's campaigns right now that businesses are shutting down to protect their employees from ICE, and they're saying, look, live by the rules of pandemic. You gotta just stay inside unless it's completely necessary to leave. Let's get into some of these comments because they made me laugh. It just says a growing number of businesses are temporarily shutting down as a federal immigration operations begin. And this is in New Orleans, by the way. New Orleans. All the businesses are like taco stores, Mexican restaurants. Viva Nicaragua! Long live Nicaragua! While we set up our business in the United States of America.
Because people don't want to show up. They don't want to work due to being afraid of either getting pulled over and getting harassed by the department. They're staying home. They don't want to come out. They're just afraid of going out. And like I say, even if you're legal, even if you have all your rights, they're still getting rights getting violated.
Just before we get into that Mamacita statement, something tells me if you run a cafe or a taco store and your employees can't come to work because they're going to be taken away by immigration agencies, maybe you hired the wrong employees. Maybe you shouldn't have illegal employees and you wouldn't be in that situation where you'd have to shut down your business. Anyways, let's talk to this mommy.
I am telling them to treat these ICE raids like COVID-19. Unfortunately, stay indoors, go out when necessary.
We're also very concerned about tourism, especially in the city of New Orleans, and what's about to happen in the next couple of weeks, and also during Mardi Gras. We know that there's going to be a big impact in that.
So I was really concerned for these people. So I did a deep dive using AI. I really dug in and I'm like, what is some of the legal recourse that these people can use to survive, to fight back, to make sure that they're avoiding trouble so that they can just live their lives? And everything I dug up, and I found that there's one secret tip that I could give these people if they want to make it work. It's called following the rules. Anyways, moving on. Speaking of new rules, Trump is laying down some additional travel bans on some countries that are considered high-risk countries when it comes to the immigration that we're seeing. However, in my personal opinion, and in the evidence we are going to show after this clip, there's a major country missing from the list, which needs to be included.
The Trump administration now pausing all immigration applications from 19 countries it determined to be high risk. This comes in the wake of the Washington, D.C. shooting of two national.
I feel like this is like a fine, a Dora moment. Can you see the country that's missing? What is it? Comment down below.
Guards members allegedly by an Afghan national.
And according to reports, the administration may not be done with this list possibly growing to 30 countries. Former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Jonathan Fahey joins us now to discuss. And in addition to that line on your resume, you are also a U.S. attorney. You are also general counsel to the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. So, Jonathan, is this move on solid legal footing? Will it survive what is expected to be legal pushback from the left?
Yes, this will survive, and it's already been tested in the Supreme Court in, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, the case Trump versus Hawaii with the so-called Muslim ban. But basically, Donald Trump has the authority to ban immigration from places that he determines, remember, not a court, he determines are detrimental to the interests of the United States.
It's actually been pretty interesting how his first term, they were sued and pushed back on so much. And they just found out the Trump administration is the most sued administration in the history of the United States. But as a result, a lot of this has been set in precedent because they've won a lot of these cases. So it's making a lot of these things in the second term much, much easier.
And in these cases, we have it for two reasons. One, are these people going to be properly vetted to the degree we can be certain that we will not be at danger. And these countries, they call them, calling them third world countries or calling whatever, it's not possible to meaningfully vet people. And Donald Trump's highest priority is national security, American public safety, and also the overall interest of the health and well-being of American citizens. So
that is an important part there. The interest overall of the Americans, the health, the well-being, yes, of course, public safety and all of these other things, because these are third world countries where you can't do any background checks. They don't have the systems in place. They don't have the infrastructure so you can know who you're bringing over. And it's gotten so bad that we're seeing a certain country, and now's the time that we're going to name it. And that country, hey buddy, how doing Operation Curry Bomb itself? India. One of the lovely representatives of the country of India was at this IT Serve Alliance meeting. So they basically are proving in real time, we have 2 clips. And in this clip, she's going after directly at Donald Trump. So keep in mind, this is a foreign entity using foreign people to flood the American workforce, get more political power inside of America, subvert wages, and on top of that, they are sending the money back home. If you remember, in the other video I said, the remittances are sucking up wealth out of the US and Canada. This is our shared problem that we have. This, in my personal opinion, is equally as big, or I actually think much bigger than even worrying about the Somalis, because this is so institutionalized. This is a global, massive industry. Let's get into her comments, because she is just literally going after Trump for this entire time.
Kick the butt of Donald Trump.
Kick the butt of Donald Trump.
His ass, really.
Kick his ass.
Let's face it, kick him twice.
That is a foreigner talking about kicking the president's ass. So we're clear.
And what did they have? What did they have? A new...
Quite the crowd there. Looks extremely diverse by being 100% Indian males.
A brand new president that was full, and I don't care which side, I don't care. First of all, when Trump talks about anti-immigrant, I'm always surprised.
So keep in mind, this is still her, a foreigner, going after the president of the United States.
Surprised. 2 out of his 3 wives were immigrants. and as it's true. And somebody recently said, the joke that they make, that immigrants do all the hard work that no other person wants to do. That's what they talk about the poor wives who got married to him, that no other American would want to be with him. The fact is, Prakash mentioned it, the president is not God. The president is not making the laws in this country, though he thinks he can make laws. So remember this, when you leave this evening, when you go back home, stop worrying at night. When you panic and worry, that means you have not become a member of IT Serve. That means you don't believe in your own power. And that means you have not believed in the power of unity as an organization.
There you have it. She's going after Donald Trump in her speech directly. The ending there is the most important part. They are institutionalizing themselves. They are organized. They are making groups because they understand there is power in numbers, and they are coming together to continue to get sway. It's the same thing in Canada. That's why Indians are so wildly overrepresented in Canadian Parliament. And if you guys don't shut this down, you're going to run into the same problem. And for some reason, they love to use the argument that it's economically productive. It's so good for the economy of the US. This is the innovators. These are the people who are here to save Americans because Americans are so dumb and stupid. Obviously, guys, I'm being sarcastic when I say that. I don't think Americans are dumb and stupid. These people do. We all know they're scamming their way in, but here they are admitting that they send half of their income back home. So when I have these arguments and people say they don't do that, they don't actually do that, they're saying it.
It's growing and very, very strong. And all of us has some kind of outfit in India. We are doing half of our income we are spending in India.
They have some sort of outfit in India, and half of their income they are spending in India. They are taking US dollars, American dollars, and sending it back to India. Okay.
For some reason, we are all employing at least 10 people to a couple of hundred people, everybody here. So, in a way, we are very happy that we have an opportunity to work in America as well as in India.
Yeah, they're very appreciative that they get to work in India and the United States. He's talking about hiring all of these people they employ not Americans. And this chart was put up here, and a lot of these tweets were provided by Expose H-1B Fraud, so I will tag them down below. But here is a bit of an infographic, and he's showing the whole ecosystem feeding on the H-1B pipeline, staffing firms, kickbacks, lobbyists, immigration attorneys, political and foreign influence, all tied together by money flow from the American consumer. And just playing this infographic here, this is why I say it's important. It is institutional. Imagine a multinational, giant billion-dollar company whose sole goal is to get as many people from India into Canada and the United States so that they can take the money out and bring it back to their own country, all while collecting massive fees, massive kickbacks, and getting more political power along the way. This is a real problem. And if it doesn't get shut down, you're going to end up with problems like this. So they always say these problems kind of like manifest in the UK first, So they always say these problems kind of like manifest in the UK first, make their way to Canada, and then perhaps down to the US. That's the trend we've been seeing anyways. Well, here's this video coming out of the UK where they found this very interesting stat, but believe it or not, we got a similar one in Canada.
They've both been incredibly relaxed about those that come in the back of lorries or across the English Channel by boat. And Glasgow offers housing and better facilities than any other city in the UK. As a result of this, an incredible fact has come out today that nearly 1 in 3 pupils in Scottish schools only has English as a second language.
Wow, pretty wild statistics. Surely that wouldn't happen anywhere else, except for in Calgary, Alberta, Canada's most conservative province. To be honest, Saskatchewan's probably Canada's most conservative province. Saskatchewan just isn't as populated, doesn't get as much news, but shout out to Saskatchewan. Jamie Sarkanek put this out, and she said, in Calgary, 31% of public school students are English learners because immigration has been so extremely high. The board is now proposing to hire interpreters for regular classrooms. This somehow became normal without anyone raising it with the feds. The numbers are so off the charts, we're not able to absorb it. It's become normalized that we can have discussions around bringing translators into classrooms. I think that's a problem. I think we might have jumped the shark on that one. And in completely unrelated stories, we have this article that just came out today. In a completely unrelated story that has nothing to do with the stories I just talked about the 31% of kids needing a translator in classes, Ontario students faring poorly in math. Standardized tests reveal. Probably no correlation there, but I wouldn't know because I'm an Ontario student who we all know historically have always been very bad at math. Also, another thing, hard lessons. Violence in Canadian schools is rising as students' complex needs are neglected, teachers are stretched thin, and the only solution is more boots on the ground. Once again, completely unrelated story to the other two that I just covered there. This, however, might actually be related. First reading, Statistics Canada said it missed 38% of non-citizens in last census. 38% of non-citizens who are in Canada are unaccounted for. 38%. That is over 1 in 3, creeping up on almost 50%. Yes, I rounded up a lot there. It's 38%. But the fact is, that's a lot. Something tells me that's going to have an impact when it comes to planning, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to all of the stress we're seeing on social services that seems to be coming out of nowhere. How could the government have seen that coming? There's no way that the government inviting in millions and millions of people that we don't even know where they are, or even how many are still here, or any of those numbers would ever be a problem. But luckily, our government is always ahead of the curve, and that's how we ended up with this story here. The trend of corporations starting to become a little bit more honest and say that the government is 100% the problem is continuing. Let's get into it.
Domtar is pointing to market conditions for the closure. In a statement, it says the poor price of pulp and a lack of access to affordable fiber are the reasons for the coming closure.
And this is our biggest single taxpayer, one of the biggest employers, not just in North Cowichan, but the broader Cowichan region. And we're talking 350, good paying union jobs. And these are people with families, mortgages. And to get news like this is tough any time of the year, but especially right before Christmas.
This is devastating news for the town of North Cowichan in particular.
Don't worry, guys. Ravi is on top of it, but the mayor is right in bringing up that as a concern, and I do wonder what this impact is going to be for these municipalities, these cities, towns, as we continue to see more and more layoffs. What is that going to do to the tax base, and what is that going to do years from now when they are in these huge deficits and just can't make up that difference?
The community of Crofton, absolutely gut-punching for the workers, their families, those that are directly impacted, the 350 workers, and of course those indirectly impacted by the closure of a pulp mill.
The BC
indirectly being a big part, because in a community like this, obviously the knock-on effect is huge.
Pulp and Paper Coalition says the lack of fiber is a made in BC problem, arguing the decision to close the mill is not tied to U.S. trade tariffs.
You will hear people say tariffs. It is approximately 0%. And I'll go on record and I'll debate that with anybody. It's 0% due to tariffs. And the reason why I say that is, let's take the Crofton Pulp and Paper Mill. Tiny percentage of what they make goes into the USA.
As we're seeing, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It all comes down to Canadian legislations, how bad the government is at managing business inside of Canada and allowing us to just get things done. But they say here that they've been warning for quite a while. Our coalition, labor, suppliers, and other industry associations have warned the provincial government for more than 2 years that more pulp mill closures on the BC coast are inevitable unless the government changes the policies that are strangling the fiber supply needed by the industry. BC has over 200 million cubic meters of fire-damaged timber alone that is dead and rotting but could be used in many of our mills like Crofton. The damaged timber represents over 10 years of fiber supply for the BC pulp sector. This fiber supply crisis is a made in BC problem. This is not happening because of American-made tariffs. And if you're curious, yes, this is David Eby's province, the guy who is dead set on running his province into the ground. As we know, Canada's biggest problem is Canada's government. They continue to hold back and try and destroy businesses. Like I said, this could result in thousands of more jobs lost. But because our government is so smart and they are ahead of the game, we are announcing another $235 million straight to Ukraine with no oversight during their massive corruption scandal. What a good idea.
Canada's contribution to the purchase of this Pearl package will be $200 million, bringing Canada's total contribution to $890 million over the past 6 months.
In total,
$900 million in 6 months sent to Ukraine, no oversight, massive corruption scandals.
today's contribution from Canada is $235 million. The funding will allow NATO to provide Ukraine with medical supplies, communications tools, and support measures to rebuild critical defense infrastructure. Global Affairs Canada says the government has committed nearly $22 billion in funding for Ukraine since Russia invaded the country in 2022.
$22 billion in 3 years. $22 billion in 3 years. They've also received tens of billions from many other countries with no oversight. And now, what has been going on and what has been found out as happening in Ukraine when there's been no oversight? Top Zelensky aide resigns in midst of Ukraine corruption scandal. A political earthquake in Ukraine has taken place as President Vladimir Zelensky, Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak, the country's second most powerful person, was forced to resign amid a corruption scandal. This comes as the Ukraine is enmeshed in negotiations with the Trump administration on a possible end to Russia's war in Ukraine. As we've covered in the last few videos and many, many others, in Canada and the US, we are seeing international organized scamming and fraud happening in Canada and the US right now during peacetime. I think it's safe to assume if Canada has sent Ukraine $22 billion, there is some level of scamming, kickbacks, corruption going to be happening, but at least the US government finally bought from a Canadian company. We were able to get those vehicles over there, not to ICE. Not to ICE, it's just the US government. Remember, those Canadian companies have principles. They would never sell to ICE. Guys, get over it. We need to get a trade deal done with the United States. And most important of all, India has to be added to Trump's ban list, and it has to be shut down 100% in both Canada and the US until the fraud is knocked all the way down to zero. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get these videos out in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. If you like what we talk about here, you want to support the channel, you could do it through the link down below. You can also do it directly through YouTube. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.